11:15. I've just come out to check on the kohlrabi. They've been in the ground for one day. Not even a day. One afternoon. And look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4 slugs. And the bear trap's just here. Crazy. Well, they're going away. Good night.
Man versus slug.
Enough of the darkness and the slugs. It's just so disturbing. So this week instead we're going to spend the week in the greenhouse. It's been way too hot in here and slugs couldn't possibly survive in this heat. And so yeah, we're going to spend a week with the tomatoes. Back at the beginning of this year, I said we were only going to be planting tomatoes in the greenhouse, although my daughter did manage to sneak one melon plant into the corner. And I said I would tell you the reason why nearer the time. Well, this is the week for me to tell you the reason why. By the time this video is aired, my wife and I will have celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary. What's that got to do with tomatoes, you're asking? Did the guests at the wedding throw tomatoes instead of confetti? Well, no. Over the summer, after we got married, we didn't have a house up until September or so, and so various people were very kind to let us use their accommodation. And one of those people was the parent of a friend of ours who had a granny annex, and they were away for a couple of weeks and wanted somebody to look after the garden, water their plants, etc. They had greenhouses which were about twice the size. Well, each greenhouse was probably at least twice the size of my greenhouse, and they had several of them. All of them full of tomatoes, cucumbers, all sorts. And we got so many tomatoes, and they said, help yourself, because we won't be able to eat them because we're not here. And it was the middle of August, and there were just loads and loads of tomatoes. So I've got really fond memories of that time just after we were married, and we made so much tomato soup just because there were so many tomatoes. And so this is a tribute to my wife that I am growing tomatoes only this year in the greenhouse to remember that time. You'd probably be kind of bored if I tried to make analogies between marriage and growing tomatoes and stuff. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to talk about what we're doing with tomatoes. I thought I'd show you again, I mean I've done it last year, but I'll do it again, what we're doing with the strings and how we're supporting the tomatoes. So the strings are held up at the top of the greenhouse. Hopefully I'm not just showing you my armpit now. And I can slacken that off. And what I'm doing is I'm twisting this string around the tomato plant, trying to get it underneath the main leaf branches. Twist that one off. And as the tomatoes grow, I have to come out and do this periodically, just wrapping it round. Let's see if we got it in shot. We have. I'm trying not to go underneath where the tomatoes are forming, just don't want to end up damaging that, so I'm making sure I'm going around the top of that. Wrapping it round, and then once I've got near the top of the plant for now anyway, I will tighten that up. Not really tying off the string, I'm just pulling it down, and it holds itself in place just because of the tension. In the greenhouse this year I planted some Gardener's Delight and some Moneymaker. I'm not sure if they're actually different tomato plants at all, but they had different labels on the packets at least. Both of which anyway are indeterminate tomatoes, which means they just keep growing, and you also get loads of these suckers. You see that coming out? So the sucker comes out between the leaf spread and the main branch there, and that would just form another branch of the tomato, and you can end up with a complete jungle. A few years ago I didn't know how to prune tomatoes. It was chaos in here. To keep basically that main stem going up the string, I am trimming off each of these suckers, strand them on the floor so that they can rot down back into the soil, and that keeps one nice stem going up. Now that's not always possible. Sometimes I miss them, and sometimes they get a little bit confusing. Let me show you that. If we look at this plant here, you can see that I've got two sort of branches coming off. Now I have no idea which of these was the sucker, because there's no real leaf coming off at this point. The plant has just branched in half. I've left both of these on, and I will just have to string up both and try and support both of them. Tomato flowers are what I believe are known as perfect flowers. Pretty little things. By perfect flowers, what they mean is they can pollinate themselves, and it just takes a little bit of wind to shake the plant like that. When you can, if you want to, give the flowers a bit of a shake yourself. But what I've been doing is just leaving the greenhouse door open as it is now. The wind will come in, shake the plant, and that is sufficient to pollinate the tomatoes. Partly because I overplant, partly because these are indeterminate tomatoes, the greenhouse becomes an absolute jungle very, very quickly. One of the things that I started doing last year, and I need to do some more, is to prune. And not just taking out those suckers, but just to allow myself a little bit of access, taking off some of these lower leaves, because these lower leaves aren't necessarily getting any light. There's a lot of plant above them, and they're adding weight to the plant. They do take up energy, even though they're meant to be generating energy. I just need to chop some off. A pair of secateurs, just to allow a little bit more airflow around the plant, stop them getting diseased. While pruning, I found a really great example of what goes wrong if you don't catch the suckers and you don't chop them off. So let me show you that. I'm afraid I'm going to have to do this without a tripod and no steady cam, so sorry if it's a little bit wobbly. Let's come down here. Right, so I've been pruning off down here. You can see where I've cut a couple of the leaves branches off really low down. And we come down here and we get to the base, and you can see there's a couple of extra suckers starting to form at the base. But we've also got, well, here's the main stem and this other stem coming up the other side. And if we follow that up, you can see it develops into quite a plant. Got its own suckers coming out there, and somewhere further up the top there we've got some flowers starting to form. So this big branch here was completely unsupported. It's effectively forming a completely separate tomato plant, even though it comes off the same rootstock. And I'm going to have to do something about that. I find this really challenging now. Do I support that extra bit of tomato plant, or do I chop it off? If I support it, maybe I'll get some more tomatoes, but I've got only limited space in this greenhouse. If I chop it off, I just feel like I'm punishing the poor plant for trying. I think that is probably the right thing to do. At the moment we don't have any tomatoes, those flowers haven't blossomed. If I chop it off, it allows the plant to put more of its energy into the main stem and growing tomatoes there. So that's what I'm going to do. Sad times, I've done the deed, and look at all that extra tomato. And that's just because I obviously missed a sucker really early on down at the base of the plant. One of the reasons that I'm doing this pruning now, to sort of free up and be able to see around the plants. That's the tomatoes sorted out this week, and probably for a couple of weeks now. Yes, well, thank you to my wife for the past 25 years. I am really looking forward to the next 25 years of making tomato soup with you, and I love you very much. So happy anniversary, wife. I'll go to the supermarket and buy some bubbly for our actual anniversary, but a cup of tea is nice too. Thanks for watching Man vs Slug. I hope you will join us again